U večerašnjoj emisiji opipavamo puls naše javnosti. Vidjet ćete neke rezultate iz posljednjeg istraživanja Programa za razvoj Ujedinjenih nacija na Kosovu, koje upozoravaju na vruću političku zimu. Naravno, pričat ćemo i o korupciji i siromaštvu, našim najpopularnijim temama. A gost emisije je glavni predstavnik UNDP-a na Kosovu, Andrew Russell. Dobrodošli u Slobodno Srpski. Gospodine Russell, dobrodošli u Slobodno Srpski.
Thank you.
Vi ste na čelu jedne važne agencije Ujedinjenih nacija ovdje na Kosovu koja se zove UNDP ili Program za razvoj Ujedinjenih nacija. Šta radi UNDP na Kosovu danas?
Well, maybe for the sake of viewers who may not know what UNDP is, we're a global organization. We've been around for about getting on for 50 years now. We work in about 130 countries around the world. We engage primarily in what we call human development. And so other UN and international partners may focus on other aspects of development, but we focus on human capacities. And particularly, we focus on those who are most excluded so that they can participate and enjoy a healthy, long, successful life around the world. So inclusion is a very important issue for us globally. And then also globally, wherever we are, we also work to build resilient and strong institutions.
Da, ali šta je prioritet razvoja na Kosovu iz tačke gledišta vaše organizacije?
So here in Kosovo, we take those global priorities and we adapt them. And the truth is that our cooperation here in Kosovo has evolved enormously over the last 15 years. As you can imagine, at the beginning, we were always about people, but we were about the people affected by conflict. And we were about security, we were about helping people to return to their homes, helping to rehabilitate services. That was in the beginning. And then over the years, we've transformed much more into an organization that has helped to establish a lot of the main institutions that now function in Kosovo. I call this sort of the foundational period, where we help to establish all sorts of public institutions dealing with everything from rule of law to social services. We help to establish also the legal and regulatory frameworks. Now today, if you were to look across our different areas where we work, it's much more about making sure that the institutions, the laws, the regulations work for people.
Aha. Da, vi ste ovdje od 99. godine. Šta su vaši najveći rezultati? Na šta je UNDP najviše ponosan za ovih 15 godina skoro?
Well, first, if you go to our website or if you go to our YouTube site, the UNDP Kosovo sites, you'll find a video there, and your viewers can see a video called 15 Years in 15 Minutes. It's very hard to, even in 15 minutes, explain everything that happened in 15 years. One of the things that I loved about that video is that we had every single one of my predecessors, wherever they were in the world, and some of them one is in Yemen, one is in Gaza, and they feel so connected to Kosovo still that they came back to tell us. And so what did they tell us? They told us, I think one of the first things that struck me over the 15 years is that from the very beginning we were in the most risky, most affected areas, especially in northern Kosovo. We were there, we were working since the very beginning with all of the communities, with all of the ethnic communities, and helping them to come back to a safe and secure environment. And I'm proud to say that we've never left northern Kosovo. We care about people, we work with people. The
Nije
politics
samo na Severno
change.
Kosovo, čini mi se da, eto za one koji ne znaju, UNDP je bila ključna organizacija koja je pomogla i povratak raseljenih Srba i drugih građana na Kosovo posle 99. godine.
Exactly.
Zašto niste više uključeni u taj proces? Imali boljih ili je nešto drugo u pitanju?
That's a very good question. So as our role evolved, obviously there's still large needs in that area. But we already had a partner from the beginning, which was the UN High Commissioner for Refugees. They're still here. Also, we have, in particular, the International Organization of Migration, who has partnered very closely with the European Union. And they have, in a sense, on behalf of the UN, those two agencies have now moved into that area, and we welcome that because at the end of the day, UNDP is much more about the long-term institution building as opposed to those issues. But we still work very closely with the institutions, the Ministry of Communities and Returns and others that provide services to those communities.
A šta je po vama ključni problem povratka? Eto, dugo ste se bavili tim problemom. Zašto nema masovnijeg, odnosno masovnog povratka raseljenih na Kosovo? Šta su ključni problemi?
Well, certainly I can speak to UNDP's experience. I'm not as expert as some of my colleagues are, but certainly from our
iz vašeg ugla.
From our experience, I think that you need to see a future. You need to be able to imagine a future where you will grow, where your family will prosper, where you see that, and again I come back to this concept of human development, which means that you will live a long, healthy life. I think people do feel much more secure here and safer here than certainly before. But I think we have a long ways to go to making sure that all communities in Kosovo have that vision of life is going to get better here. And I think that's not just a challenge for the minority communities. I think that's a challenge for all Kosovars. It's very challenging to live and to stay in Kosovo.
Dobro, a malo pre na početku ste govorili šta je to UNDP, a šta mislite, znaju li, odnosno koliko su naši građani ovde na Kosovu upoznati o vašem radu i uopšte o UNDP-u?
That's a really good question. I almost want to ask you that question.
Mislim, da, UNDP je inače poznat kao globalni lider u transparentnosti, je li tako?
Yeah, I mean, we are known for our work on governance and human development. I'm very curious to see what the person on the street might say about us. But I do know, what I do know is that, and I think we need to do a better job as international agencies in monitoring especially our joint efforts with Kosovar institutions on advocacy on key issues. We need to do a better job of, understanding what is the impact of that. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether or not people know about UNDP. And the truth of the matter, we're kind of in the papers every day. But that doesn't matter. What matters are the issues.
Jasno, dobro, sada idemo do naših građana da to proverimo. Njih smo, dakle, pitali, znate li šta je UNDP i ako da, čime se oni bave, pa da vidimo šta kažu naši gledalci iz Severne Mitrovice, Prištine i Gračanice.
Ne znam.
Ne znam, stvarno ne znam.
Ne znam, niti me interesuje, ne bavim, sad penzioner.
Skraćenica za koju ne znam šta znači.
Verujte, ne znam, stvarno ne znam. Ne znam.
A ne znam.
Da, znam.
Šta je? Čime se bavi?
UNDP je jedna američka organizacija što se bavi za ovom financijski projekat za bilo šta.
UNDP valjda Habitat.
Jedna organizacija Ujedinjenih nacija. Čime se bavi, ne znam.
Ne.
Ne znam tačno čime se bavi, znam da je iz Amerike, ali konkretno ne znam šta, koje poslove rade.
Verujte da ne znam. Znam da je neka agencija, ali ne znam čime se bave.
Ne.
To je neka strana organizacija.
A čime se ona bavi?
Bavi se, čini mi se, organizacijama partije ili tako nešto, ako se ne varam.
Ne znam to stvarno. Pedijatri vodim, sa decom sam radila, dio posao, leukemiji i to, a što ne bi znala da vam rečem.
Ne znam.
Boga mi, sad da čujem. Sad prvi put da čujem. Ozbiljka.
UNDP? Ne.
Dobro, gospodine Nasal, evo vidjeli smo i čuli šta kažu naši građani i šta kažete na ovo. Skoro niko ne zna,
Yeah.
neki prvi put čuju za vašu organizaciju.
Yeah, I think it goes exactly. I could have guessed. I think it goes exactly to the point I was trying to make before. I think we have a profile perhaps amongst the more sort of the political elites, the ministries. We work very closely with ministries, with the various Kosovar institutions. And because our focus is so much on helping to build their capacity to provide services to the community, it's not entirely surprising to me. I mean, they do know what the Ministry of, hopefully the Ministry of Health is. They do know what the Ministry of Communities and Returns is. And they do probably know that they have a mayor and a municipality. And these are the people that we're working with. So on the one hand, I'm not overly shocked by the response, but on the other hand, as well, I mean, it is important not so much for UNDP, but for the partners that we work with as well, that they also they receive credit for their work. Because what is disturbing about that is that what they don't know is that UNDP is an organization that can only do what it does because of the government of Finland, because of the government of Switzerland, because of the... In fact, we work very closely with the government of the United States. We are not an American organization, obviously, although the UN is based in New York. I think that's an issue for me, because I think it is important that regular Kosovars... I don't care whether or not they know that UNDP exists, but I do care, and I think it's important that they should know how much solidarity there is from the international community, and that's being expressed through our work.
Jasno. Eto, da bi vjerovatno bolje i efikasnije funkcionisao, UNDP je na Kosovu je podelio svoje aktivnosti u 3 programa, ako tako mogu da kažem. Skraćeno, to su inkluzivni razvoj, demokratsko upravljanje i zaštita životne sredine. Ajmo od svakom o ovim programima po nekoliko reči, jer obični ljudi, čini mi se, i ne znaju, niti moraju da znaju te vaše stručne termine. Eto, na primjer, inkluzivni razvoj. Šta je to i da li se razvijamo ovdje na Kosovu?
Yeah, we tend to use a bit of jargon with the United Nations. What does it mean? It means jobs, it means employment, it means being able to participate in the economy. So what does this mean in concrete terms? So for example, I don't know if you interviewed anybody from Kosovo or Obiliš or Srpska or Dragaš. These are some of the municipalities where we work on what we call territorial employment pacts, and the idea is that we commit some resources with our partners. In this case, for example, Austria. We commit resources, municipal government commits resources, civil society, private sector, and we make a target and we say, look, over the next period of time, we're going to generate together these many jobs for people, and we're going to monitor that, and we're going to give preference to those who are, minorities, women, youth. This is the focus of our work. So that's what we mean by inclusive growth or inclusive development.
Okay. A kakvo je demokratsko upravljanje na Kosovu i čime se to meri?
Are you interested in learning more about how we engage on that issue or how we measure it?
Možemo li da kažemo da ovdje na Kosovu imamo demokratsku vlast?
Yeah, I mean, we actually don't use the word democratic governance, but I wouldn't veer away from that term in the sense that this is the path that Kosovo has chosen. Democracy is not. It's a process, and yes, I think we're engaged in a process of strengthening democratic governance in Kosovo. And the areas that we look at in particular as UNDP is the functioning and strength of our rule of law institutions and the capacities. And for example, maybe the people on the street don't even know that there's institutions there that would not exist if it wasn't for our support, like mediation services in Kosovo, free legal aid. It's not as strong as we would like it to be, but these are institutions that we've helped to create. The second issue that we look at very closely is corruption, and the flip side of that is how to build integrity. Hope that's not too jargony, but the idea of avoiding corruption and preventing it from even beginning. And then the third area that we're increasingly involved in with some of our partner UN agencies and other counterparts is transitional justice, which is the idea that we're 15 years on here and we really haven't dealt with the past, and we need to support those efforts, those Kosovar efforts. To deal with the past, to come to terms with all the various aspects of what we call transitional justice, which is about telling the truth, it's about
reparations. A gde je Kosovo tu na
etc.
nekoj skali od 1 do 5, kad je to, da kažem, demokratsko upravljanje u pitanju?
Look, I think there's so many different indicators out there, and it would be very hard for me to be able to give a specific number to Kosovo. I would say that, for example, there are very reputable organizations like Transparency International that do annual indicators, and they have ranked Kosovo below all other Balkan countries on the issue of transparency and governance.
Da, a šta po vama najviše nedostaje kosovskim institucijama? Vi ste organizacija koja pomaže, kao što rekao smo, razvoj tih kapaciteta lokalnih, centralnih.
That's a really, really good question, and that's an issue that we struggle with every day. I think that one of the things that first and foremost that struck me when I first arrived in Kosovo was a very clear sense from a lot of our partners that they didn't necessarily see themselves always in the driver's seat. And I think in terms of having functioning democratic institutions, first and foremost, you have to see yourself in the driver's seat, and you have to see international organizations like UNDP and others as really just there to support and to accompany you in exercising your leadership. But I think more than any other place that I've worked, I think it has to start with a sense of ownership of the process and a sense of accountability. Second big issue that I see, and we see this coming up a lot in our work on corruption, is that I think that there's a lot there's a certain sense in Kosovo, for example, just to give you an example, we did one of our public pulse surveys on...
Ne, jasno, pričat ćemo malo kasnije i o tom problemu, o korupciji, ali sad mi konkretno recite, šta najviše nedostaje kosovskim institucijama?
Well, I mentioned one already, which is that sense of Kosovar ownership and accountability and responsibility. The second point that I was going to make is, and we saw this coming out in our health survey report, is that I think there's a general acceptance of...
Hoćete da kažete da su naši političari neodgovorni ili šta?
Sorry?
Hoćete da kažete da su naši političari neodgovorni pa čekaju da im možda neko drugi radi posao umjesto njih ili šta?
No, I think that there's a certain reluctance sometimes to really stand up and say, look, this is our I'll give you an example. I had at least a few ministers when I first came tell me very honestly that they loved the work of UNDP and that they wanted to support us. And my reaction to that is, actually, no. Now it's time for us to support you. You're in the driver's seat. Let us support you. I'm not saying it's irresponsibility. I think it's part of the process of democratic maturation to take that sense of ownership and go further with it. On the issue of corruption, all I wanted to say was just simply that I think the people of Kosovo sometimes have a sense that certain thing is business as usual and it's not even corruption, when in fact it is corruption, and it's draining resources, and it's draining energy, and it's draining. It's getting in the way of development. Corruption should not be accepted.
Jasno, ali ona je svakako, da tako kažem, smrt za svaki sistem. Na nju niko nije očigledno ni imun. Eto, ni Eulex izgleda. Mada je istraga u toku, ne znamo još uvijek šta će i kako biti, ali izgleda da mi sa Kosova postajemo zarazni i za druge, kako rekoše neki evropski zvaničnici. Mislim da vi ubacite još jedan milenijumski cilj, onaj 9. možda, borbu protiv korupcije na Balkanu. Treba će nam verovatno još jedan milenijum da to iskorenimo. Jeste vi vidjeli negdje više korupcije nego kod nas ovdje? A niko nije kriv uz to?
Well, like I said, and I said, I mean, you, on that list, again, I would refer to organizations like Transparency International. I mean, they put Kosovo at the bottom of the Balkans. We'll see where you come out this year, but you're not the bottom of the world. You're not the bottom of the world. There's a whole bunch of other parts of the world that at least according to experts like Transparency International.
Jasno, ali verovatno je Kosovo jedino mesto u svetu gde je specijalni tužilac za borbu protiv korupcije uhapšen upravo zbog korupcije. To je bilo prošle godine, čini mi se.
I could tell you some stories from other parts of the world, but I think sometimes when you're here in Kosovo, you miss out on, if you're here for too long, you miss out on the fact that you guys have achieved a lot over the last 15 years. It is incredible. That is for sure. And so I know it's hard to remain optimistic sometimes, but I see that as my job to be optimistic, and I hope to spread optimism, because actually you've achieved an enormous amount.
Šta radi UNDP kad je korupcija u pitanju, odnosno borba protiv korupcije?
We're working both. In our projects, we work on the supply side and the demand side as much as possible. What does that mean? That means, I go back to what I was saying before. We need to increase the demand for integrity in our municipalities, in our ministries, in our other service-providing institutions. We need to increase the demand, and we work with various civil society partners on that. We work with youth, young people, and we work with also the institutions themselves to strengthen their capacity. And we work with, we do something called integrity planning, which is identifying risks of corruption and putting mechanisms into place to prevent corruption from happening in the first place.
Vi i nagrađujete korupciju i siromaštvo. Mislim, šalim se, ali tako ispada. Godinama nagrađujete najbolje novinarske priloge, odnosno priče o korupciji i siromaštvu. Koliko mediji mogu da pomognu u iskorjenjivanju ovih problema?
Well, I think they're already doing a great job, and we try and encourage more media organization, individual journalists to really dig and bring these issues to light. So that's why, it's probably not a surprise that every year the UN Development Program headquarters awards us a grant to do this work. I certainly think that they feel that it's important to support the work of media in Kosovo. If we had time, we could talk a lot about how we work with media over the years. But the one thing I think we do with these prizes is that we try and shed a light on the importance of reporting on these issues, and we try and encourage more journalists and more print media, online, etc., to get engaged on the issue.
A kako ocenjujete same kosovske medije? Ima li tu siromaštva i korupcije ili mislite da dobro radimo svoj posao?
Well, I think that it's again, if you're coming in from the outside, you can see you're essentially starting from scratch 15 years ago. And one of the most important UNDP contributions together with Japan 15 years ago was actually to help to establish independent media in Kosovo. And that's something that we're very proud of. And I think that it's a process. One of the things that I note is that, like I said before, we're in the papers every day. Now, we're an acronym, so maybe people don't know exactly what we are, or maybe our articles are so boring they don't read them. But what I'd love to see more is more of what we're doing, more of engagement. Not just accepting our press releases, not just setting, in a sense, regurgitating what we put out there, which they do very nicely, but engaging us in dialogue and in confronting us and asking us difficult questions.
Pratite li ove lokalne medije?
Yeah. As you could probably see, I'm not so good at the local languages, but we're very fortunate. I have in my office, I have Albanian, Serbian communications experts who bring the issues to us there, but also the UN writ large. The UN presence in the Balkans is very significant and has a very significant communications capacity. And I know what's happening here. I know what's happening in the Albanian press, the Serbian press, etc. In the region as well.
Gledate Slobodno Srpski, gost emisije Andrew Russell, glavni predstavnik UNDP-a na Kosovu. Dobro, gospodine Russell, jedna od važnih aktivnosti je i redovno sprovođenje istraživanja javnog mnjenja na celom Kosovu, kako severno, tako i južno od Ibra. Nekad se to zvao, čini mi se, izveštaj ranog upozoravanja, a danas je javni puls, odnosno puls javnosti. Šta je cilj i koji je značaj ovog istraživanja?
Also, this survey has evolved over the years. At the beginning, you mentioned correctly that it was early warning. It was really about looking at risk factors, perceptions around safety and security in the immediate aftermath of the conflict. It's evolved over time, but it remains very much about promoting fact-based dialogue, debate about issues, and giving a voice to regular Kosovars. Probably, a lot of the people on the street that you may interview may have participated in one of these many surveys that we've done over the years on a whole range of subjects. But it's our modest contribution together with the USAID, the US government, to promoting citizen participation in the issues, so the different political, economic, social issues.
Jasno, a da li se ti dobijeni rezultati mogu smatrati kao pouzdani u donošenju, nekih strategija, planova i uopšte u radu institucija i organizacija na Kosovu?
Yeah, I mean, we've been doing this since for over 13 years now. We have highly qualified statisticians working with us. Our methods have been verified. I mean, obviously, a survey is a survey, and surveys can't always, they're not always 100% accurate. There's always a measure of uncertainty.
Da, koliko su ta istraživanja kredibilna i profesionalna? Zapravo, naši ljudi u sve sumnjaju, znate i sami. Mislim, Balkan.
I'm telling you that I vouch for its credibility, but obviously if you want to see conspiracies, you will find them. And I find that this, along with other places of the world, is a place where people love to find conspiracies. But no, I mean, this is a service that we provide. You don't have to believe it. You can take it, you can leave it, but at least it's a contribution so that leaders, civil society, Kosovo institutions, whoever cares about these issues, have a way of hearing what the public has to say.
Dobro, ajmo konkretno, UNDP je nedavno objavio i najnoviji puls javnosti, pa da zajedno analiziramo neke segmente istraživanja. Malo pre smo pričali koliko su nam zapravo institucije demokratske, a vi ste u vašem istraživanju pitali građane Kosova koliko veruju institucijama. Dobijeni rezultati su, čini mi se, prilično šokantni. Po vašem istraživanju ispada da tek svaki peti građanin Kosova veruje institucijama, odnosno kaže da su zadovoljni njihovim radom. Kakva je to onda vlast, gospodine Rasol, ako tek oko 25% stanovnika Kosova izjavljuje da su zadovoljni zajedničkim radom zakonodavnih, izvršnih i pravosudnih institucija?
Well, I mean, we purposely put out this latest public pulse right now, and we did the survey just a few weeks ago, and we fast-tracked the publication of the results, the analysis, because we felt it would be a useful contribution given the ongoing deadlock. It was perceptions at a particular time, and I think that one shouldn't be overly shocked or surprised by the result, because this was, a survey that was taken after about 5 months of deadlock. I think the fact that it dropped from previous surveys was not, at least to us, not a huge surprise. The other thing I want to point out again is that...
Aha, mislite da je ova institucionalna kriza uticala zapravo na to? Ovo što se dešava ovih 5-6 mjeseci.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And we used specific questions to get at that issue as well, and it was absolutely obvious from the questions that this is what's frustrating Kosovars right now. But I have to say, I mean, I'm Canadian. The public opinion in Canada, other parts of the world, it varies. I don't think anyone should panic over these results, but certainly it raises awareness of the need for all leaders to be concerned about the fact that when such a low portion of the population actually has confidence in what they're doing.
Jasno, ali dramatičan pad zadovoljstva građana registrovan je i u ocenama rada parlamenta, ali dobro, to nije ništa čudno s obzirom da smo imali ovu situaciju o kojoj smo sada govorili, ali ono što posebno zabrinjava je pad poverenja u pravosuđe, odnosno rad tužilaštva i sudova. Mislim, oni nisu ni u kakvoj institucionalnoj krizi, mada posle silnih afera ništa čudno, rekao bih. Vaš komentar na to?
I think, as I said before, I think it's certainly a wake-up call for all of us that although progress has been made, a lot of progress still needs to be done, and certainly, what I've always found about trust and confidence is that it takes a long time to build it, but it can take just one small incident to lose your trust and confidence in the public institutions. So it's a wake-up call for all of us.
Mislite da je ovo oko Euleksa isto doprinelo možda tome? Ili je vaše istraživanje rađeno pre toga?
I can't remember exactly the specific dates of the survey, but I wouldn't link the two now.
Aha, okej, dobro, idemo dalje. Evo citiram vaš puls javnosti. Izraženo nezadovoljstvo stanovnika Kosova radom glavnih institucija je također izraženo u odgovorima ispitanika na pitanja koje se odnose na njihovo zadovoljstvo političkim pravcem u kojem se Kosovo kreće. Čini se da je samo 5% stanovnika Kosova zadovoljno ili veoma zadovoljno sa aktuelnim političkim pravcem Kosova u odnosu na 21% u aprilu 2014. godine, odnosno ove godine. I kuda ide Kosovo, gospodine Rasol? Zašto je sad ovakva situacija?
I think it's also related to the ongoing deadlock in the sense that these are people who voted. Maybe they voted for the status quo, maybe they voted for change. They voted for something, and here we are 5 months later, and they don't see any movement, whether, and I think that also has an impact on your sense of where Kosovo is going. your sense of optimism, because I think that whatever your position was, you want to see forward movement, and we've been somewhat stuck for the last few months.
Dobro, vaše istraživanje ukazuje i da je čak 39% kosovskih Albanaca spremno da izađe na ulice i protestuje protiv ovakve situacije, a kod Srba je sa Kosova je još gore. Ispada da je svaki drugi Srbin spreman da se pridruži političkim protestima. Mislim, ako je ovo istina, sprema nam se jedna topla zima izgleda, odnosno vruća politička scena.
Well, I think, again, nobody should get overly concerned with that result, in the sense that in these sorts of democratic processes, strengthening democratic governance, the right to participate in protests is obviously incredibly important. And if Kosovars of all ethnicities can agree that they have that right to protest, and they might well do it, I think that's actually in some ways a positive thing. But again, I think it's not just, obviously it's not just the deadlock. Obviously here we are, still struggling with, and I go back to what I was talking about before, why is it that UNDP is focusing so much on employment? Well, because people are worried, they don't have jobs, it's something that is right now, I think, not at a dangerous stage. But obviously, you have so many young people from all communities, and if they don't see a future in Kosovo, A, they'll try and leave Kosovo. B, they will get increasingly frustrated, and this is a risk, and this is something I think that this survey is reflecting.
Jasno, mislim, složit ćete se da su ovo prilično alarmantni signali. Dobijaju li, ne znam, ove vaše izveštaje premijer, predsjednica, ljudi iz ambasada, odnosno ambasadori i drugi koji vode Kosovo, jesu upoznati sa ovakvim stavovima javnosti i u stvari opštim padom zadovoljstva naroda?
Well, obviously you'd have to ask them that question. But my perception is that
mislim, ili im vi šaljete i to?
We primarily work through the media to transmit this through all the different mechanisms of the media. We also invite and share that information as well with our partners, and we invite them to discuss and work with us on it. We also use the information for our own work as well. We try to practice what we preach. But I think you're making an important point, in the sense that I think that this is an incredibly powerful tool, the public pulse, other reports and analysis that we do. My long-term goal is that we can get out of this business, and that there will be enough capacity here in Kosovo that this type of public pulse work can be done without us here. But in the short run, I think we actually need to do a better job of making sure that not only do we get these findings out in the media, but that actually we also monitor to the extent that leaders in all sectors of society are making use of this data and this analysis. You're absolutely right.
Dobro, evo idemo dalje. Može i gore od ovog što smo do sad čuli. Opet citiram vaš puls javnosti. Javno nezadovoljstvo privrednim pravcem Kosova je veće od nezadovoljstva političkim pravcem države. Oko 79% svih ispitanika su nezadovoljni ili veoma nezadovoljni tekućim privrednim pravcem Kosova, dok je samo 5% javnosti zadovoljno. Podaci prikupljeni iz anketa pokazuju da je nezadovoljstvo pripadnika ostalih zajednica i kosovskih Albanaca veće nego nezadovoljstvo kosovskih Srba. Samo 3 od 4 Srba je nezadovoljno. Šta kažete na ovo?
Well, I think all of these findings are linked. A link to the sense of frustration with the political deadlock, but also, again, it shouldn't be that surprising to us. There are such high levels of employment. unacceptable levels of poverty, extreme poverty. Here we are in Europe, and it's unacceptable. And these these surveys are not just reaching the elites. We're talking to some of the same sort of people that you were talking to. They may not know it's UNDP, but we're talking to them. And of course, yeah. I mean, if you look at the data, I would ask that question back to Kosovars. Are you satisfied? I would be surprised if they were.
Dobro, i mi smo uradili jedno mini istraživanje, ocenu zadovoljstva građana radom Ujedinjenih nacija na Kosovu, pa da pogledamo anketu. Dakle, građane smo pitali da ocene od 1 do 5 rad Ujedinjenih nacija na Kosovu.
I can't wait.
Pa nek bude 2.
Zašto?
Pa eto tako, relativno su nas prvo bombardovali, drugo, nemam reći o tome, ne bi sudila. Drugo me ne bi sudila, jer živim tu i moj jedinac kad može, mogu i ja. Ne bi ništa loše rekla.
Pa dobro je.
Koju ocenu biste dali?
3.
Zašto?
Pa toliko zbog korupcije i to što su.
5 su.
Zašto?
Zato što su radili i su pomogli ljudi. Na svaki način.
2.
Zašto?
Zato što nema napretka od 99. do sada.
Jel može 0?
Zašto?
Pa ne sviđa mi se ništa.
Pa 3.
Zašto?
Ne može se reći da je ispunila sve zadatke.
Pa rad Ujedinjenih nacija su oni 0, oni su nevidljivi. Oni sem tih godišnjih izveštaja, ovo celokupnu nadležnost su prepustili Evropskoj uniji, mada oni sami svoju rezoluciju ne sprovode 1244, niti insistiraju.
Ja da ocenim rad Ujedinjenih nacija, ne znam, ni to ne znam.
Jedinica.
Zašto?
Loše radi, slabo radi.
Nemam nijedna, pravo da ti kažem.
Zašto?
Tako. Oni su tako negliženi da ništa nisu radili pravo. Baš ništa. Jedino su došli pare da uzimaju, da otidu u svojim zemljama i tako.
1.
Zašto?
Pa nezadovoljni smo. Tako.
Pa 0.
Zašto?
Pa zato što niko nas više ne tretira ni najmanje.
Ocenim samo NATO, ništa drugo.
A 1 trojka.
Zašto?
Pa eto, zašto?
2. Zašto?
Pa kako rade, vidi se, kako su radili, vidi se šta je. Dok smo došli?
Ja mislim da je to 3. Trojka. Pa mogli su više da urade. Evo, prilike su bile takve i oni nisu izvršili svoj zadatak.
Nepravilno su radili. Za cijelo Kosovo nepravilno su radili. A zato što, pa vidi šta je sad, sam narod otišao. Ostali smo mi koji nemamo ništa, ostali smo ovdje.
0.
Zašto?
Zašto? Pa što ne navijaju za nas, nego za sebe. Oni zamutili vodu, a ko će da izbistri? A može neko da izbistri tu vodu? Niko.
Dobro, gospodine Rasar, evo vidjeli smo i čuli šta kažu naši građani. Imamo tu 0, nekoliko jedinice, dvojke, niko više od trojke nije dao za Ujedinjene nacije. Šta kažete na ovo?
We had a few 3s. No, we had 1 5. But then again, he was the one who thought we were an American organization.
Da. Šta kažete na ovo što smo čuli i vidjeli?
Well, I mean, it depends on how I think it was interesting, you were asking how they would evaluate the United Nations, right? Is that correct? Or you weren't saying UNDP or any other specific. And I think, obviously it doesn't, we're a lot of different things. Now, of course, the woman who said that we bombed, that's not factually correct, but some of them were willing to evaluate us even though they didn't know who we were. But I guess they knew the broader issue of, and obviously, it's a complicated legacy that we have here. But the fact of the matter is, many of the institutions that they deal with, for better or for worse, wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the support of the United Nations and their international partners, especially in the first years after the conflict. So I think that in a sense, that's probably something 15 years on that they don't remember, was that these things didn't exist and we helped to reestablish them. The other thing is that we're a pretty complicated group of people. And so maybe if we'd asked the question about, who knows, about UNICEF that works with children, or other technical World Health organizations that helps to fight disease in Kosovo, who knows, maybe they would have had the same response. But we're a set of many actors working to help Kosovo. The other point that, if you could just let me make one last point, which is, this is also a reflection of what I was saying before, in the sense that because we were so much involved in actually setting up these institutions and, in a sense, running Kosovo for so many years, what you also see here reflected in these people on the street is this sense, oh, well, these people are actually responsible for helping us, when in fact they need to be also expressing, yes, we're here to support and to help, but ultimately it's now the Kosovar institutions that need to be responding to a lot of the issues that they raised.
Jasno, ali evo 15 godina prođe. Što nas ne naučiste da vozimo taj auto, kako rekao ste, malo pre, mislim. Dokle?
Yeah, no, I think it is not, how should I put it?
Su loši učitelji ili su ovi loši đaci?
Well, a lot of, it was also interesting, one of the comments that was made, because a lot of those teachers, they're still here. Because most of the UN agencies, actually, we didn't come and take money and then leave again. From the very beginning, most of us worked almost entirely with Kosovars working for us. And a lot of those Kosovars have left the UN and are now working. And so, in a sense, a lot of our teachers have left. And they've gone back into private sector, back into working in the public institution, municipalities, etc. That's a success. But I do take your point in the sense that we're 15 years on, and a lot has been achieved. But yeah, we're still here, and there's still a sense that we need to be here and support. But I think you're absolutely right that there are things that we could have done better, and certainly we want to do as good a job in supporting the people and the institutions of Kosovo, and we can do better.
Gledate Slobodno Srpski, u nastavku ko je prvi čovjek UNDP-a na Kosovu, Andrew Russell. Andrew Russell preuzeo je dužnost koordinatora za razvoj na Kosovu 15. oktobra 2013. godine. Russell je više od 20 godina u Ujedinjenim nacijama sa iskustvom u menadžmentu i na terenu. Radio je u nekoliko latinoameričkih država i na Kipru. Nadgledao je programe posvećene socijalnom dijalogu i učešću civilnog društva. Ima titulu eksperta u prevenciji kriza i za obnovu, kao i za tranziciju sa ratnog područja na razvoj. On je magistar Univerziteta Kolumbija u oblasti međunarodnih pitanja, a također je povremeni predavač na Haverford univerzitetu i Univerzitetu Kolumbija. Vi ste, kao što ste rekli, iz Kanade. Jeste prvi put na Kosovu sad došli prošle godine?
Yes, I've done a little bit of work in the Balkans, but this was, I came for a visit in September, and that was my first time in Kosovo, and then I started in October.
I po čemu se Kosovo razlikuje od drugih krajeva gde ste radili? Šta je bolje, šta je gore?
It's hard to say what's better or worse. I think what I love about Kosovo, apart from the macchiato, is the warmth of the people. I've worked in many places where people are not as friendly to foreigners. I think it's a good thing and a bad thing, but you make us feel incredibly welcome. Some of us feel so welcome we never leave, and we probably should leave. But that I have to say, I have never worked in a place where, and I'm talking about all communities, everybody, it seems like you almost have a competition amongst yourselves to demonstrate how friendly you are and how welcoming you are. And we've talked a little bit before about the downside of that, because I think sometimes you need to stand up and say, hey, that's not right, and you need to do this differently, etc., and not be so respectful to us. The second thing that I love about Kosovo is that there's a sense of dynamism here. It's sometimes 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but there's always the 2 steps forward. And I can tell you, I've been in places where all we did sometimes was go back. And here you go forward and you push forward. And I really applaud that. Energy and commitment to moving forward.
Dobro. Prema vašoj zvaničnoj korespondenciji, Kosovo nije nezavisna država, nego teritorija pod upravom Ujedinjenih nacija. Je li tako i u praksi ili samo na papiru?
Look, let me be 100% clear. The UN operates in Kosovo under Security Council Resolution 1244. We have, that has not changed. It continues to be the case. With all of the different developments, the official, in a sense, the official UN position is status neutrality. But the fact of the matter is that until the day that the Security Council and the General Assembly decide to change that, that is the framework. And it's not just the framework for UNMIK, which is still here, but it's for all of us in all of our activities. And that's the framework in which I am here, and we do our work. That being...
Jasno, to je na papiru, ali pitao sam vas kako to izgleda u praksi.
That's how it looks in practice as well. But, and here's the big but, is that since, and this is nothing new, I mean, since 1999, we work with the people of Kosovo, and we help to build the Kosovo institutions. And we're not going to get into the debate as to whether these belong to a territory, a province, a state, or a private company. We're here and we care about people, and that's why we're here.
Da, ali koliko ovo utiče na vašu efikasnost, mislim, taj princip te statusne neutralnosti koji postoji sada kod vas tu? Da li vas tu to na neki način koči da budete efikasniji možda u nečemu, u vašem radu?
Absolutely not. I mean, and here again, I also applaud and recognize.
Mislim, kad je ta saradnja sa institucijama u pitanju.
Yeah, no, and I'm telling you, I absolutely not. I've never, we take a practical approach, and that, that has nothing to do, and it does not get in the way of us being as efficient and as supportive as possible, because at the end of the day, what we care about are people.
Jasno. Dobro, vi ste na čelu tima Ujedinjenih nacija na Kosovu. Koje su još agencije, svetske organizacije prisutne na Kosovu i koliko su funkcionalne?
How popular? I don't know. Again, we should do another round on each of the agencies. But I'm very proud and privileged. Yeah, I have 2 jobs. So I'm the head of the UN Development Program, UNDP, and I'm also head of what we call the UN Kosovo team. Or I'm not the head of it, I'm the coordinator of activities. And that means I have the great pleasure of working with UNICEF. Let's see if I can get them all. UNICEF, UN Population Fund, International Labor Organization, UN Office for Project Services, International Organization of Migration, UN Volunteers, UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, UN High Commissioner for Refugees. Boy, I'm going to get in trouble. Oh, UN Habitat. Somebody thought we were Habitat, actually.
Yes.
They are here. They are here. I think I'm getting whoever I didn't mention, don't get angry at me.
A zašto UNESCO nema
agencies.
UNESCO? Zašto nema predstavništva na Kosovu?
They're non-resident agencies. No, they're active here as well, but we have, I think they've come up with a new term. We love coming up with new jargon, but we call them non-resident agencies. So they're active here. So for example, the UN Office for Combating Drugs and Crime, they're increasingly active here in Kosovo, and we welcome their support, and we help as UNDP, we help to facilitate their support. We also work with UNESCO as well, and UNEP, UN Environment Program. These are 3 of the non-resident agents that also work in Kosovo.
Jasno, ali pitao sam vas zašto UNESCO nema predstavništvo na Kosovu, mislim, posebno uzimajući u obzir šta se sve dešavalo sa UNESCO-ovim zaštićenim tim spomenicima ovdje.
I think you're absolutely. I would love, and I am working with UNESCO to strengthen their work here and to scale it up. We have some ideas, but every UN agency, what you have to understand is we all have different business models. Some of us are regionally based. Some of us have UN Women. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot UN Women. For example, UN Women, has project level staff here, but are run from Istanbul. So we all have different models, and so UNESCO has that model, and so their representative who covers Kosovo is based in Sarajevo.
Dobro, eto i na kraju da vas pitam. Vaša misija je, kao što rekao smo, dakle, određena rezolucijom 1244 Savjeta bezbednosti. Ona je i dalje na snazi. Svi znamo, ali koliko se zapravo ona primenjuje na Kosovu i povodom Kosova?
In what measure is it applied here? I would have a hard time answering that question because essentially it is the overall framework in which...
Koliko vam ona pomaže, odnosno komplikuje vaš rad?
Look, it's a fact. It's a fact. and the fact of the matter is that we're here to help the people of Kosovo regardless of the framework of what we're working in. So I don't spend a lot of time thinking about that. I just think about how to help Kosovars.
Znam, ali to konkretno možete kažete, jel vam to olakšava ili komplikuje život, odnosno posao?
You asked me this question before, and like I said, we've been doing this for 50. No, I said it doesn't complicate, and we've been doing it for 15 years, and if we have to do it for another 15 years, we'll do it for another 15 years. It's not something that's in our control. It's as they say in English, way above my pay grade. And so what we do is we work within that framework, but we focus on results and on helping people, and that's what helps to move us forward. Because if we spend all day discussing that, guess what? We'll never get anything done. It's a reality in which we work. Our partners understand it, and then we say, yes, it exists. Let's get on with it.
Gospodine Rasel, hvala puno što ste bili gost emisije Slobodno Srpski.
Thank you so much.
Gledali ste i slušali Slobodno Srpski. Budite sa nama i sljedeće nedelje na vašoj omiljenoj televiziji. Slobodno Srpski ili kako god želite, pišite na e-mail adresu slobodnosrpski@gmail.com ili pošaljite pismo na Medija centar Čaglavica za emisiju Slobodno Srpski. Prijatno!